All right, I would like to welcome everybody to tonight's resource meeting of CACD annual meeting. My name is Scott Jones. For those who don't know me, I am the president of CACD. I represent the Eagle or Colorado River watershed in Eagle County. So I will be kind of emceeing tonight, or I will be, not kind of, I will be emceeing the meeting tonight. We do have 5 resolutions to get through tonight. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind everybody that we use Robert Rules of Order. Nikki, are you the secretary tonight or you are? Okay. Nikki will read the resolution, and one of the people on the resolution committee, a person, when we do roll call, they will then second it for it to be open for discussion. If they do not second it, it dies right there. After we open it up for discussions, we'll try to do it orderly as we can. Raise your hand. You'll find the chat or using the, what do you call that bar? I'm sorry, my brain's not working as good. You'll find to be able to raise your hand, or you can comment in the chat or just holler out. I'll make sure to try to give enough time for everybody to speak who would like to speak on these resolutions. If there is a change to the resolution that you guys would like to make after it's open for discussion, that needs to be followed up by a motion and well as a second, and then that will be opened up for discussion on that. So I'll have my notepad. Harold is backing me up. We'll try to keep this organized as we can. Hopefully it won't get too deep and too many motions out there on the floor for the resolution to pass. Then after we decide to change the resolution and close the floor for discussion, I will then ask for the committee to vote on any changes that have been done to the resolution. Then if it passes committee, it will then move on to the business part of the meeting. So if that sounded really confusing, I understand, but as we go along, it'll all make perfectly good sense to everybody how it works, I hope. So Nikki will be doing the reading and taking minutes tonight. We'll be doing screen share. So she'll pull the resolution up. As we would like to make edits, she will do that in front of us to make sure we can all read it as plain as day. Please be in mind, whereases, we don't want to use whereases. We want to be very specific on what the resolution is telling us to do. Okay, with that, Bobby, would you like to do roll call?
Yes. Good evening, everybody. Before I start, I'm going to go per watershed, and I am just looking for the name and watershed representative supervisor who will be voting for your watershed tonight. So I realize we have a lot of different supervisors on, so I just wanted to clarify that. So first, Colorado River.
Sean, that's you.
Oh, okay, that's me. Hi, Sean Bruckman, Eagle County Conservation District. Thank you.
Thank you. Gunnison Dolores.
That's me, Vanessa Hoff.
Thank you. Lower Arc.
Harold Unwin.
Thank you. Lower South Platte. I had an Aaron Powell that I thought might be an alternate. I'm not sure if that person's on. But Lower South Platte. Okay. North Platte, White Yampa.
Rosalie Kings.
Thank you. Rio Grande.
Tyler Neely, Rio Grande CD.
Thank you. Republican. Jim should be on the phone.
Bobby, this is Noah. I'll just jump in. If anybody is on the phone and needs to unmute themselves, you can dial *6. It'll take a moment, but you will be unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Tim Cecil, Cope Conservation District.
Okay, we got Republican covered. Okay, San Juan. That should be Gary Thrash. Is Gary on?
Yeah, I'm on, although I'm not a supervisor, so I don't know that I should be voting.
Does somebody want to clarify that for me? I'm not Scott or Harold.
Your watershed didn't have a meeting, did they, Gary?
Yeah, we had a meeting, but we
You didn't?
didn't,
You
We
didn't
didn't
sign
know.
up.
I mean, I represent the watershed, but I don't I'm not a supervisor on a district anymore.
Okay.
Right, but that still counts, doesn't it, Scott?
I can't vote in the general meeting, so,
Right, but you can still represent your watershed, correct?
You can represent your watershed, yes.
okay.
Upper Arc,
George Foch is on here from the CACD, but I see we've got several other district supervisors on here tonight that feel free to vote.
okay, I had you and Tim Brown, or
Tim's on here. Tim can vote.
does Tim want to do it?
Sure, I'll vote.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Tim.
Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you,
And
George.
then Upper South Platte.
Here, Charlie Carnahan.
Okay, thank you. Looks like we are in good shape.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, guys. Nikki, could you please pull up last minute's meetings?
I think Noah was going to pull those up
Oh,
for us.
okay. Thank you, Noah.
Sorry about that. I got too many screens going here. Let me make sure I'm getting the right ones shared for you.
Not a problem.
Can you confirm you can see that, Scott?
Yes.
Awesome. And do you want me to read highlights or just scroll for everybody?
You can just scroll nice and slow.
Alrighty.
Okay, that will do it. So any of those people that said here or spoke up to be the representative, if one of you guys could make a motion to accept the minutes, that would be great.
This is Harold. I move that we approve the minutes.
This is Tim Brown. I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion? Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Just to let everybody know, Charlie is the chair. So he has just the responsibilities of any other chair in this. I'm just helping with it being basically emceed. So with that, we will go into the resolutions. I do see we have two resolutions opposing the 30 for 30 American the Beautiful land grab. I guess just keep that in mind. We will start with the first one. I will ask Nikki to read the first resolution. They are on the website if anybody has not seen them, to the link, so you can pull them up if you want to read more background to them, but mainly focusing, we will be focusing on the resolution unless somebody requests us to go up and read the background.
Scott, this is Nick. Hey, one is an action item and the
Okay.
other is a policy amendment. So they're marked two differently. They're the same. Not exactly the same. Well, I guess they are the same, but there's some additional, just a heads up on this deal. There's additional language in later paragraphs, I think, for one being an action item and the other one adding it to the policy, making it part of the policy book, right?
Yes, that's correct, Nick.
Okay.
Okay.
And Scott, you might mention that this was submitted by both the Upper Ark watershed and the Lower Ark watershed.
Okay. Thank you, George. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Are you ready for a second, Charlie?
Yes.
I second this resolution.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. Pull up the resolution there, Nikki, or slide down to the resolution.
Read it, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna hold before we do to the second.
Okay.
Harold, I will have Nikki read it just for people on the phone and everything like that. So Nikki,
That's okay.
that I will have her read this. This is, yep, go ahead, Nikki.
The resolution reads as Colorado Association Conservation District should urge and support conservation districts in opposing the proposed 30 by 30 America the Beautiful program, including its objectives of permanently preserving 30% of the United States of America's lands and water and designating any more wilderness areas or restrictive policies on existing federal lands along with the national heritage areas and conservation easements or any other program that is being designated in its natural state by 2030. CACD should support and help conservation districts write letters to county commissioner to each county in Colorado within the conservation district boundaries and opposing America the Beautiful program.
Okay, thank you, Nikki. Now I will open it to be seconded.
I'll second that, Harold.
Harold has seconded. Okay, now it is open for discussion.
I just wanted to ask, is this the one that's the action item?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Thank you.
The reason our district and Spanish Peaks did this resolution, if you go back and dig into Senate Resolution 372 and House Resolution 870, I think it's 875. They've already got it in the books back there in Washington, DC. It's not a bill, but it's a resolution that's laying on the desk to be there, ready to go. And it showed some concern for us because we had to battle the the Pinion Canyon in our county when they come in. And we just want to let people know, be aware of what's going on and the different type, if you read in them Senate bills, where they're going to get this land from. And our biggest concern, why are they wanting 30% when they've already got 18% of this land in the total in the US already in national parks and areas? If you sit down and look at the size of what they're wanting to add, it'd be the size of the state of Texas. So for agriculture producers, we need to be letting people be aware of what's going on.
This is George, and also just add to that, Harold, that there's high risk that ranchers and things that are having any type of government leases for grazing and such could be wrapped up in this, and the loss of grazing leases is a serious issue.
Yes. And another thing, we really had concern about is we're in rural areas. And if a lot of this land goes into national parks and wildlife areas, our land taxes, our schools will, most of them are off of land taxes. Well, let's face the facts, the PILT money coming off the federal lands is 50 cents on the dollar. So a lot of these rural schools will not survive.
Yeah, the federal government owns plenty of land. They don't need any more. This would be one of the worst things ever gone on as far as I'm concerned.
I see Gary has his hand raised.
Yeah, I mean, NACD's been involved with the NRCS and Department of Commerce and a number of other executive agencies in coming up with guidelines for the 30-30 goal that the Biden administration set. And it doesn't just put things in parks. It recognizes, one of their tenets is recognizing the value of ranchers and the conservation work they do on their land. So it's kind of, I haven't read the Senate resolutions or the House has a bill that our Representative Bobber submitted opposing 30-30. But it's, to me, it's a knee-jerk reaction to a goal that an administration set. And so, for instance, you write an executive order, which the Obama did for, say, Grand Staircase or Escalante over in Utah, national monuments, and yeah, under the Antiquities Act, and then the Trump administration comes in and removes a whole bunch of that acreage, and then the Biden administration comes in and puts the acreage back in. So it's kind of, if you just take and lump everything that it's going to make one big national park for the Western United States, I don't think that anything I've seen is that intention is there. And the NACD has taken that, the National Association of Conservation Districts, representing 3,000 conservation districts across the country, would not support Colorado in this effort.
Gary, this is Harold. I have one question. Why are they only wanting land west of the Mississippi?
They don't target land west of the Mississippi. It's 30% of America's land and water. So it's it includes the oceans and seashores. And so the 30-30 isn't west of the Mississippi River. And I don't, I agree that you don't want to have a whole bunch of areas designated as wilderness area. That's already discussed, and Congress has to approve those wilderness areas. We already have representatives that argue our case there, and then we can take positions on those individual legislative efforts. But to just take a broad brush and say our policy now is that we're going to urge all the county commissioners in the state of Colorado oppose this when we don't have that support at the national level, I think we're just shooting at a target we don't have.
Gary, this is Cindy Lair. I have a question for you. Wasn't NACD working on this to make it so that it wasn't like preserving them, but to have land conservation like the conservation districts do be
So,
part of
yeah,
that?
and that's correct. And I mean, what the executive order says is not preservation, it says conservation. And so NACD's position is that we've been defining conservation for over 75 years. And in that conservation, it being implemented on the ground by voluntary efforts and incentive-based conservation that we've been arguing for 75 years. So it's, and that's the position NACD has taken, is that let's, not let somebody else take the word conservation and turn it into preservation. So, and yet we argue in the state of Colorado that we want to do exactly that, because we're calling that a conservation effort preservation. So did I lose people, or
No, you're good.
I could look like I locked up here. I'm sorry.
Everything got frozen.
Doggone to me. I blow the computer up. There are some good reports out. I mean, the interagency report out is worth reading to see what the Department of Interior, Department of Ag, Department of Commerce has come out. And NRCS, who's a big partner of ours, is right in the mix of that. And so when you start arguing against conservation easements for agricultural land, and NRCS has a big agricultural conservation easement program, then that's been ongoing for quite some time, that it's kind of, well, now we're going to oppose the Farm Bill. So it's.
Gary, hey, this is Nick. Although I'm not on the decision-making part of this deal, it's a matter of trust, and it's a matter of executive decisions. So if I sign up my place for a conservation easement and 3 years down the road or 5 years down the road, the president decides that, we're going to take all these conservation easements because we have an interest in this property. And we're going to change a few things in that agreement that don't really change the agreement, but it changes how we manage the agreement. And I think it's a matter of trust. And that's where this resolution comes from. And I don't disagree with you. I think, I'm a big proponent of conservation, and I think everybody is kind of headed down the same road. But these things have happened in the past, and it's been a stroke of the pen both ways, and what you just mentioned. So I think that's the concern that people in Colorado have, is that we agree, and we don't think that this is maybe a harmful bill, but it could be, and there's really no guarantee that it won't be because of the past. So, that's kind of the counterpoint to what you're saying. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think it's probably a good thing. Conservation is great. What they can do in our conservation district is fund more of our projects. That's what Washington should do for us, is fund more projects, fund them all, and especially with water projects. So having these grandiose plans, like what I feel like this is, and big statements that are politically popular is great, but really money on the ground is what we're about. Thanks.
Rachel?
Thanks, Scott. And I just wanted to speak to Gary's point. Obviously, I'm not here to tell you to go one way or the other on this, but just what I've observed within NACD is that the kind of the overarching feeling on 30 by 30 is if you're not at the table, you're usually dinner. So I think NACD's perspective is to be involved with this process so that we can have an input into how conservation is defined, since that, as Gary said, that's been our spiel for 75 years. And so we're pretty well poised to help define that term. And I think, I mean, it's definitely something that should be watched, and there's going to be things in there that don't align with conservation district values. But NACD's thought is, if we walk away from the table, then it'll be defined without us, and then that will be worse than if we're not, if we're involved in contributing our opinions and our history and our values to this discussion. So I think that's just NACD's overarching thoughts on this 30 by 30. And if anybody hasn't had a chance to read Michael Crowder's op-ed in the AgriPulse that came out this summer, I'd be happy to share that link. He kind of sums up NACD's thoughts on this issue well. So I would encourage anybody to review that too. But again, I don't want to sway you one way or the other. I just wanted to speak to Gary's points on NACD's perspective. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Scott, do you recall where CCA is sitting on this one?
No, I would imagine opposing it, but I have not talked to Terry or anybody about the 30 by 30 yet. Is there anybody on the Zoom that is from CCA that would like to comment?
Well, Scott, Steve Wooten is the president of CCA, and he's a friend and neighbor down here.
Okay.
So,
So you might know.
Yeah, they are opposing it. And I just want to comment, all the districts are for conservation. And, I like what Nick said, get the money on the ground for conservation projects, practices, continue that, but let the landowners be the one deciding what practice they have, not have an easement or a program that says you only can do this, this, and this. And, that just like right now, the Nature Conservancy easement, you can't build anything new on them, that type of easement. And that's, how can you improve your land if you can't build anything on it? And that's what really worries us. And another issue that really sticks in our minds as a district here, when we were opposing the Pinyon Canyon expansion, they were going to go from Trinidad down Highway 50 all the way to the state line. When they finally backed off, one of the generals said, we're going to come after you again, one way or another, we're going to get your land. So like Nick said, the trust in the government is very slim down here.
That's right.
So.
I was thinking, I almost feel like maybe instead of it just being all CACD, is maybe we should put, NACD in here with us. Just a thought. I mean, this is your guys' committee. I just had a thought. Maybe if we wanted to.
Can you explain more?
Basically saying that NACD, and how I would read this is starting by CACD should support and help conservation districts. I would like to say CACD and NACD should support and help conservation districts by writing letters. And then I don't know if I would necessarily focus in on county commissioners. Maybe it's something bigger. I do know the county commissioners with conservation easements have a big pull in their towns, but maybe it needs to be senators, congressmen. I think it needs to be, let's think bigger besides just our local area. Casey? I see your hands raised.
But aren't you, aren't they saying that NACD is not, in support of this? Right?
Yeah.
They're not in support.
Right, they haven't supported it yet, but they're not opposed to it at this time. So
Yeah.
do we have the ability to
So
speak
the-
for NACD?
Well, just, that was my thought. If it was a bad thought, I can regress if you guys don't think so. But it was just a simple thought that I'm bringing to the group.
This is Jim.
Yes, Jim.
We can encourage NACD through a resolution like this to start the process to somehow word it that we are concerned. Now, Gary might be able to help us more in that respect, but NACD will do what the state conservation districts ask them to or encourage them to if they get enough support. So yes, Scott, your idea is good. If we want to try to move NACD policy toward this, this is where we should start. But I don't know if that was these two districts' intention, or they just want to keep it in the Colorado realm.
I couldn't state that better, Jim. Thank you.
Well,
I see.
know-
Yes, Harold?
Well, one reason why we put in county commissioners, Los Adams County in the state of Colorado is the only one besides White River up in the northwest corner. That county is the only two counties that right now that come out with the commissioners opposing 30 by 30 in the state of Colorado. And you go talk to some of them, the counties, and they wonder, why are you even talking about 30 by 30?
Right.
And so that's why we had commissioners in there for the district to go start talking to their commissioners.
Okay. I do see a hand raised. Is it Casey?
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Casey.
Thank you. Thanks. I just wanted to follow up on Rachel's offer to share in the chat a book or reference regarding this conversation, because I think it would be really helpful to, at least for me, to read more about it and get more background.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
but what I meant to say is that somehow my chat is disabled. And I'm not a voting member or anything like that. So it just says my chat is disabled.
Okay. I bet Noah heard us say that. I bet he's looking into it right now.
Thank you very much.
Not a problem. I also have another hand raised, Gary Thrash. You're on mute.
I was going to respond a little bit to Casey's, pull up some information that I had, some links for both the AgriPulse article that Rachel mentioned, plus the interagency report that has come out on 3030 that I could post on the chat. The other thing, as far as get it into NACD, is if we pass the resolution through our state, then we need to submit a resolution for consideration by NACD at their annual meeting in February in Orlando. So that's how that process would work. And then it goes through before it gets to the board of directors for consideration at NACD. It goes through a filter to see if it even is worded correctly to be a viable NACD policy resolution. So, but I'll post those articles I had on the chat.
I think it's good to leave the NCD in there because they, it's a national organization and the national needs to be involved.
I have no problem with it.
Would it make more sense to put the NACD after urge and support? So Colorado Association of Conservation Districts should urge and support NACD and state conservation districts. I don't know, but is that the better way to do it, or are we? I don't know. You guys tell me.
Is that a motion, Sean?
Well, I guess I'm just kind of more trying to understand of, that was a good explanation of, we would need to then make a movement to actually take this to NACD if we were to pass it the way that it read before. But if we were to pass it this way, then it's more of us taking the action to NACD to do something. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of which way makes the most sense with our ability. Gary, can you give me clarity, please?
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, this is, I guess we're kind of mixing the two resolutions that came before it. One's an action item with, this is an action item asking for CACD to do something. And then the resolution on number 2 would be the one where we would direct move it forward to NACD.
Okay, so this way that we rephrased it is actually more appropriate action of what we're allowed to do, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's the way I would view it, is we'd be asking CACD to take this action throughout the state. Yeah. And then the second one would be the resolution you'd move forward to NACD.
That was my understanding on all this.
Okay, not a problem. So Sean, I'll leave it back to you because you did that clarification. Just to get clarification, Sean, are you wanting to make that a motion as change this, or do you want to just keep it the way it was worded, knowing what you know now?
Oh, gosh. You know, it's tough because I thought going into this that I was so clear on being like, nope, we don't want it, it's bad. But I think those were some really, really good points made about if we're not at the table, we're dinner. Is that how it was phrased? I think that's a really good point. And there's just some really good points made today. So I guess I'll make a motion to add it that way, but I still feel like I'm not quite sure where I want to go with this.
Not a problem. Just to remind everybody that an action item is action for us for the thought. We'll get into that tomorrow night. More what it clarifies what an action item is for CACD. But this basically is what we're working on. So is what an action item is versus policy.
Hey, Scott,
Yes.
can I just make one comment? If
Yes.
you have edits or suggestions to the resolution, can you please speak them so that the people that call in can hear them? They can't read the chat messages.
Oh, okay.
So if I finally caught up on chat a little bit and there were some questions. So if anybody has any edits they actually want to make or discuss, definitely make sure and unmute yourself. That was it.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not on the committee, but as a technical amendment, it should say the Colorado Association of Conservation Districts to start. That's just making sure our organization is properly named.
So I'll make a motion to change that to the Association of Conservation Districts, and also to change, I don't know if I need a motion for this, but down below where it says CACD should support and help conservation districts, there shouldn't be a comma. I'm sorry, an apostrophe and before the S. And to write letters to county commissioners should be plural. So just grammatical. And then there should be another parentheses after America the Beautiful. Just to clean up all the grammar in one motion.
Good job, Sean. I like it. Thank you.
That's one thing I'm not strong in is grammar.
Not a problem. Okay, so there is a motion on the floor. Is there a second for the
Second.
corrections that, okay, it's been seconded by Harold. Any discussion on the corrections? Grammar,
Yeah, this is Jim. I have a question for Gary. If it's appropriate at this time. Are you finding any districts or states out there that are beginning to have pushback on this like we're doing now, Gary?
It was there in Jackson, Wyoming, at our Southwest region meeting, that there was a presentation by a couple of people. One was a woman that works for the Western Governors Association, basically saying, let's take the position that the 30/30 is actual conservation the way we understand conservation on lands and not preservation. And another was by, what was he, former, I guess he was a Wyoming representative, Wyoming senator that spoke to us, and he was kind of, didn't take a position, I guess. I mean, he kind of walked the line of, I'm against it, but then I'm not against it, I guess. It's kind of, I read his. Yeah, and I mean, the districts that were represented at that meeting, there wasn't a whole lot of push that I saw coming out of it. So we did have some discussion at our conservation district here in Durango about it. And the president here, he wanted to go on record to oppose it, but he couldn't get the rest of the board to support him. So.
And I understand that we are in a state where currently we feel agricultural might feel a bit under the bullseye from the current administration, where some of the other Western states might not feel quite that gun shy. So that does affect, I believe, our stances here. So.
Because I have to count you too, that, I mean, the meeting in Wyoming was in Jackson, Wyoming. So it was kind of not a good picture of Wyoming either, so.
Right, okay.
This is George. Is there any way we could put something in here rather than just the flat out opposing language, but I'm not coming up with good words here, but something about monitoring the progress of this 30 by 30 bill with the background of opposing it? Because again, we don't know what it's all going to look like yet. We're opposing something that we don't know what the final picture is going to look like. So I was just trying to think of a way to stick the word monitoring in there, monitoring its progress on the national level with an understanding that we oppose as written or something like that. I'm lost there.
Okay, Sean, it's your turn. Go ahead.
I like where you're going with that. I'm trying to, you guys can keep commenting and I'll keep looking at it. Jerry, do you want to go ahead?
you could say it that way. You could say that Colorado Association of Conservation Districts should monitor and support in a, I don't think that's too much of a run-on sentence, is it?
All it takes is a spark or some source of combustion.
There's some hands up.
Okay, must be. Sorry, I was looking at that. Let's see, let's go with, is it Morgan?
Margaret?
Margaret, sorry, Margaret. Sorry, Margaret. I did that the second time. Sorry. You are on mute. Okay.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just think we need to have some very strong eyes on this. I don't know if it's one piece of legislation, it'll be multiple pieces of legislation, or if it's all executive orders. But I know one of the proposals I've heard out in this area is to return all of eastern Colorado and western Kansas and Nebraska back to natural grasslands and do away with farming and irrigation, because those are bad things. And it's just crazy ideas like that, that I don't think people, the rest of the the country fully understand how devastating that would be to our food supply and stuff like that. And so to me, this is, we just really, whatever we need to do, but NACD and CACD and everybody just needs to keep their eyes on it, because there is some really crazy ideas associated with it that I have seen.
Okay, Gary, your hand's still raised?
Yeah, I guess, number one, it's not legislation, and there hasn't been any legislation put forward to implement it. In fact, I would think existing legislation would cover multiple. Like I said, the NRCS has come out and say we're increasing the conservation stewardship program, which would fit into the 30 by 30, and we're doing more conservation reserve up in the rental fees for conservation reserves and things like that they've come out and said that they feel fits into 30-30. So the only legislation I know of is legislation of the resolutions that go say, yeah, we want to support the Biden administration in implementing it, are just that. There is no legislation that gives them the authority to just move forward unilaterally on one target. And if you get like the area down in Harold's country where the military is coming in, they want to withdraw lands, purchase lands to take it out of production for a military base. I mean, that's an act of Congress as well to do that. So, and if you look at Congress, I mean, you get the whole gamut of extremes on what it could do and what it could not do. So
okay,
I think NACD's position is that of taking a working intimately, being involved in committee meetings and representing us on that basis, where you and I we're not back in Washington, DC doing that on a regular basis.
Okay.
What about something to this effect, that we would oppose the bill to the extent to ensure the protection of historic agricultural conservation practices?
Did you write that down, George?
Well, basically, they would oppose it as necessary to ensure the protection of the historic agricultural conservation practices.
And private land ownership.
And private land ownership, yes.
Where would you put that, George?
So I
Just
have
to get more-
another suggestion, and I want you to keep that in mind because I think there's a spot for that. I have another suggestion first of rearranging the words that are already in here. I'm thinking that it should say the Colorado Association of Conservation Districts should support NACD and conservation districts in monitoring the proposed 30 by 30 America the Beautiful program. And then I would say a period there because there's a lot of sentence. And then maybe this is where we could say, there's two options. We could either say in its current language, we would oppose its objective, blah, 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 for the rest of that. And then maybe at the end of that sentence is where you could put what you said. So it would say, in its current language, we would urge opposing its objective of permanently preserving 30% of the United States of America's land and water and designating any more wilderness areas or restrictive policies on existing federal lands, along with national heritage areas, conservation easements, or other programs being designated in its natural state by 2030, period. And then could you add what you were saying, George, saying we would promote, and then I'm sorry, I can't repeat what you said.
Something like it is the intent of CACD to ensure the protection of historic agricultural conservation practices and private land ownership.
Like it.
That might be a good place to put it where you just suggested there.
Yeah. And sorry, Tim, you've been waiting to speak, but I wanted to get that rearranged a little bit while we were talking about it.
Sean, I'm missing half of what you said. In its current
Oh,
language, we would,
okay.
yeah, I lost
We
you when you kept
would-
going.
Oh, I was just gonna say we would oppose
Okay,
including its objectives, blah, blah, and then I already read it out loud for the, thank you.
And then do you want
and
George?
George,
to
I'll
give you-
need yours. Yep.
Got it. So George, she needs some clarification on where she's at so far.
Okay, right where you're at in there, Nikki, is the intent of CD to ensure the protection of historic agricultural conservation practices and private land ownership.
Put in conservation after agriculture, Nikki.
Yes. Historic agricultural conservation practices.
Okay, is that it, George?
The minute's close enough. I'm open for suggestions too, but
I'm gonna go to Tim. You're on mute. Yep, there you go.
Oh, there, am I?
Nope, you're on mute now. Now you're good.
There we go. Can't go fast enough. Well, I can't even figure out exactly what I'm speaking to on the motion, because there's on like, what, 3 different motions on the floor right now, and I'm a little lost with that.
So technically, the motion is just to give clarification of the spelling and grammar punctuation is what was truly seconded on it. But I figured since we were working with the grammar, rewriting that this isn't too bad, but I can go back but we do have a second on the floor right now.
Right, well, that was one of my points. It's like, wait a minute, all of a sudden we're changing it. I thought we were only voting on grammar and punctuation. But there's a lot I like to say.
So-
I don't exactly know where to start, if you know what I mean. Because I think this is like the third different motion. We go back to the first one, and then then there would be a substitute motion. Anyhow, I don't know. I don't even know where to begin. I guess if you're starting with the addition of all these words, what is your definition of historic agriculture, and private land ownership? What is historic? Is it 2 years? Is it 5 years? Is it, since 47 is in my farm? I don't exactly understand that. And then I guess my bottom line is I really don't like monitoring in there, because I know what monitoring did with the Agri Workers Bill this year. And I'm just a little lost with all of it. If you know what I mean. I'm struggling here with. I know I'm a new guy, but I'm struggling.
Not a problem, Tim. I will
maybe
be
maybe Brent Moore could help us, or at least with me, because the 3 lobbyists that I deal with quite a bit, I keep asking them all through the summer. I says, where are we at with the 30-30? Where are we at with the 30-30? And honestly, they tell me it's not a dead issue, but it sure has been pushed way back. Maybe Brett would at least give me what his view of it.
Okay.
I don't know.
Before I call on Brett, I will address where you are on the motion. So the motion was, we'll get a little housekeeping done on this. So the motion on the floor that was seconded was to clean up the grammar punctuation of it. So before we put in the word monitoring was brought up, that would be the motion. So if you guys were happy how it was with grammar, I would call for to close that discussion out of the grammar first made.
I agree, Scott.
Okay,
Yep,
So
sorry.
not a problem, not a problem. I was keeping track. This is, I've learned. I've learned. So any opposed, say nay of the grammar punctuation on the motion that was open on the floor. Hearing none, motion passes. Sean, could you then make a secondary motion of the words that you have added that are highlighted in green?
Okay, I will make a motion to change the word should urge, I'm sorry. Change the word should urge and support NACD and conservation districts in the proposed 30 by 30 program to should support NACD and conservation districts in monitoring the proposed 30 by 30 America the Beautiful program. And also adding, in its current language, we would oppose including its objectives of permanently preserving 30% of United States America's lands and water, designating any more wilderness areas or restrictive policies on existing federal lands along with national heritage areas and conservation easements, or any other programs that is being designated in its natural state by 2030. And also adding, it is the intent of CACD to ensure the protection of historic agricultural conservation practices and private land ownerships. And I'm going to add to it that CACD should support and help conservation districts write letters to county commissioners and state legislatures. Oh wait, sorry, county commissioners in each county of Colorado and state legislators within the conservation district boundaries.
So after, yeah, right there.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess we'll talk about that. I just wanted to add that in there since I'm talking right now. And then I guess I would add the word, since we did it before, in, I want to change that other opposing word to, I guess, okay, in opposing the America the Beautiful program as it is currently written. That gives more opportunity to still have conversations about it, but then I'm stopping my motion there.
Okay, thank you. Good job. Is there a second?
Second,
Who was that?
Rosalie Coombs.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm going, okay, Tim, I will have Mr. Moore help give you some clarification on that. Brett?
I don't know if I can give any clarification to that, Tim. I'm almost exclusively Colorado lobbyist. The federal stuff is beyond my pay grade and sphere of influence. You know, my only comment on the conversation so far is, you know, NACD should be responsive to what the districts say. And the 50 states and the districts in the 50 states determine NACD policy. So don't let the dog wag, or don't let the tail wag the dog on that one. If we have opinions, we should not feel bad about sending them up to NACD. Now, whether they'll get a hearing or actually pass at NACD, we've run lots of stuff up the chain to NACD in years past, and there's definitely NACD policy that was originated in Colorado and was passed here, and there's a lot of policy we've pushed up there that hasn't gotten through its first hearing. So it's you know, it's just a matter of how that stuff's handled and what the consensus among the 50 states are. So
Okay, thank you for that. Is the NICD now supporting this 30 by 30, or are they against it? I don't even know that.
I think Rachel spoke to that earlier, and I would yield to her because I do not represent NACD, or Bob or Gary.
Gary, I see your hands raised. Maybe you can touch on that too.
Yeah, Rachel mentioned that in that AgriPulse that the president of NACD put an op-ed in there, and I'll read just the last paragraph from it. And he said, "We are encouraged that the preliminary report recognizes additional stakeholder input will be important to inform progress and urge the administration to consider creating a formal public comment period for stakeholders to respond. We look forward to working with the National Climate Task Force and the interagency leaders to continue the dialogue, provide formal input, and convene stakeholders across the U.S. to ensure local perspectives are heard and incorporated into the initiative." And so it's they've already been engaged with the administration in addressing things around 3030. And one of those is going out to the field and gathering people's input on the ground, having public meetings in all the states. And so I think that's the direction it's heading. Then also a little clarification on Brett, there's 50 states plus 7 trust territories that are represented in the NACD. So, and
Okay.
3,000 conservation districts. So,
Okay,
There, don't want to forget about our friends in Guam.
yeah, Guam's really friendly. They're a good bunch of people coming out of Guam to come to our meetings. And they call in the middle of the night for our meetings. They're kind of.
well, as a former state board member for the Colorado Farm Bureau, I understand, kind of how these processes work. But I guess the way it says, the first sentence, the Colorado Association Conservation District should support NACD. Well, I'm trying to figure out what we're supporting with them. So that was my only question. I'm still a little lost with that, but anyhow, and I know their meeting's not until February, so they actually couldn't take a position, I suppose, until February. Is that correct?
Correct. And so this is an action item, and then there's another that we can take as a state to NACD at the national meeting and try to get our voice heard and oppose having this, I guess, be policy in the NACD book that they would oppose the 30 for 30 federal land, the land grab, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. So in the next one, so we can discuss more on what CACD would do with that on the next resolution. But this, like I said, this is a action item. So this is just, and I was the one that brought up the NACD is just to give, sometimes if we're writing the letters and you can throw in the NACD national, it might perk somebody's up like, well, what do they do? But at the same time too, do we truly know if they are supporting or against it? Well, they really haven't taken a stand because they're trying to keep at the table, and I think they don't want to just come up and say, well, this is stupid and we're walking away from it, because then it will get taken in. So it's one of those things where I think they're monitoring it. I would say probably that they're monitoring it, trying to, but we all know how that could end up.
Yes, sir.
It all end up. So it's totally fine. If you guys feel the need to cross out NACD, this is your guys' resolution to fix, however, to give clarification to CACD what to do.
Well, it feels like we're putting the cart before the horse, because we don't know how they're going to be standing, but we're all, you know what I'm saying? That's what it looked like to me. And I'll back in my corner for a while. Let you guys play.
Just to bring a little more clarity to that, the way that we rearrange the sentence, we would be supporting NACD and conservation districts in monitoring them. So we're supporting them to monitor, but maybe we should change that support word to urge, which was the original word in there. Maybe we should say conservation districts should, CACD should urge NACD and conservation districts to monitor the proposed. Would that be a little bit more clear on what we're asking of them?
So right now, NACD has said that they're wanting to actively engage with the administration on 3030. So it's not just monitoring, it's engaging and just in those discussion, formal comments, bring it together, stakeholder meetings, whatever's necessary that way. So that's the current position of NACD. So.
This is Harold. Our intent when we wrote this is to urge all the conservation districts, this action item, to get started in the state of Colorado. Our next item, the next resolution is a policy that goes on to NACD. So,
Okay, but this is really good. We're taking a little bit of time here because when we go to the next one, we can do a little copy and pasting, I hope.
Right.
If you guys want it there. So that's kind of what I'm hoping you guys do. So, but I
Sean,
do like the word that it is the way, urge NACD and conservation districts to monitor.
How about the word encourage rather than urge? Just a suggestion.
That sounds more friendly.
not being bossy.
So Harold, I wanted to ask, when you wrote this, I mean, I was pretty strongly in opposition, and I completely understand why, the way that it's currently written. Do you think that there's a problem with the language changes in that it's encouraging more interaction as opposed to just straight opposition? Does that go against your initial?
No, it's not. I like the adding the state legislature and protecting our historical land, just like, I hate to say it, my land property here, in 2 years, we've been in the family business for 100 years and I hate to lose it. And so, and I really like the way we are doing it now. So.
Well, and just saying that too, is you're using a buzzword right now in agricultural with saying historic agricultural practices, private land. Like that's
right.
that's hitting, that's going to hit some people in the face going like, oh, this is a little bit more important than we thought. So
that's right.
Okay. I'm going to wait a little bit. Is there any more discussion on the motion that is on the floor right now?
This is just a grammar comment, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but
yes,
I wonder if you take should out from before encourage and just have CACD encourages, that makes it a little less passive. But that's just thought.
You guys happy with that, Sean and everybody?
Yeah, I wonder if we should also incorporate that comment of so encourages NACD and Conservation District in monitoring and engaging in. What do you guys think? Do you want the and engaging in? Someone had mentioned that that's another piece of it, not just watching it, but actually
taking part into it.
Yeah.
I like that. I think engaging is better.
Okay.
So do we need, do we need another I'm probably getting into too many details. Do we need another action word in the statement of, in its current language, we would oppose including its objectives of, etc. Do we need to say, in its current language, we would encourage like NACD and conservation, or am I being too repetitive? Never
You're
mind.
being a little too repetitive there.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
To me, I think that's,
I'll stop.
I get what you're saying though.
Just speak to the motion, where it says state legislators, shouldn't that should say state, I can't talk, state and federal legislators?
Since this is a federal, that would be wise for us to do that.
Right,
Yes.
the states are not gonna really be able to help us much. I mean, they can, but yeah, we need to talk to the federal level.
Yeah.
And you might consider replacing legislators with lawmakers. That would cover all
There we go. That's what I was looking for.
state
Yeah.
legislators.
God, I see Rosalie. Did she have something to say?
Hold on.
Not
I-
currently.
Go ahead, Rosalie.
Did we
Not-
fix everything, Rosalie, that you were thinking of?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, ready? So to close the motion on the floor, I will be calling any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right. Is there any other further discussion or any other further motions that we would like to make? Do we still have a lot of people on phone? Nikki, do you know? Or Noah?
Scott, you have, looks like 3 people still on the phone.
Okay.
And again, for anybody on the phone, you can press *6 to unmute yourself.
Would you guys like Nikki to read this in entirety before you vote on it? Or would you guys just like to go ahead and vote on it?
Let's go ahead and vote on it.
All right.
I do have one comment really quick. I see that the it's in the third line is still underscored with a red grammar notation, and I think it is supposed to be ITS apostrophe. Can you check on that, Nikki? Or just it's, yes.
Yep, you got it.
Thank you.
Okay. Calling for the vote. Any opposed, say nay.
I'm gonna say nay.
Okay. Gary Thrash, so noted. Any other nays?
Tim Brown's a nay.
Tim Brown's a nay. Okay. Any others? Motion passes. All right, thank you very much. We will now move on to the second resolution, which is the 30 by 30, which we just talked about.
Hey, Scott, this is Noah.
Yes.
Well, Nikki's getting the next one pulled up. If I could just double check. I believe the process we went through last year did not involve making individual motions on specific edits. It was a group editing process and then a motion to approve as written at the end. Is that right, or am I off base there?
It depends how we could do it that way moving forward, if that's fine with everybody. Then that way, as long as somebody doesn't call for it like halfway through. That's where it usually bites me in the butt, is when somebody's like, well, I've had enough talking about this, like, let's just move on. So if we can make, I know we were pushing the boundaries with how we did that. But I think just for time's sake, if we want to try to open that up for edits, if there is something that is truly that you want me to really pull the brakes on or really grab the reins of it and do it step by step, I will. But I guess since this is kind of tail coating onto it, hopefully we can just tailor it. So, but that you make a good point, Noah.
As long as the group agrees by consensus,
Yeah, that's
follow that
I care
procedure.
about.
Then if anyone is opposed, they can go ahead and voice that disapproval, and then we
Yep.
can vote on that, I would say.
Okay, sounds good. That's how we'll, thank you, Jim. That's how I'll do it. So if somebody wants to be, just ask him and I'll make sure that we get the motions back in order. So,
As long as everyone gets full chance to visit, that's what we're after.
correct. Okay, so this resolution is policy. This is not an action item, so this is going into our policy. So with that, I will have Nikki read it out loud, and then if we want to keep working on it, somebody can second it.
Okay. The Colorado Association Conservation District opposes the objectives written in the America the Beautiful program and any future program introduced both at the federal and state level that requires preserving any further acreage of the United States of America's lands and water, and opposes designating any more wilderness areas or restricted policies on existing federal lands along with national heritage areas and conservation easements or any other program that is being designated in its natural state, both at a federal and state level.
Is there a second?
I'll
Harold.
second it.
Okay, go ahead, Charlie.
I'll
Charlie,
second.
good. Well, you're the chair, Charlie, so Harold technically
Oh,
has to.
okay.
Sorry. So, okay, seconded. Now open for discussion.
Basically, we did this because, with the new program of policy, trying to make it into the policy for the CACD policy book. So if there's any rewrite, feel free to do it, because this is kind of new to me on writing a resolution for the policy.
And as I recall on taking policy to NACD, and if Jim, maybe you remember, but don't we need to say CACD and NACD to in the beginning? When we take it to the national, I don't know if you remember those. Okay. I thought it had to say that in the beginning of the beginning sentence, we had to say CACD and NACD, or NACD and CACD, however it is. Does anybody remember?
Well, if it becomes NACD policy, then it speaks for all 3,000 conservation districts. It doesn't single out Colorado, in a NACD policy statement.
Okay.
Wouldn't we just now superimpose what we just did as an action item into this space? Isn't that what we still want to do? Harold, or not?
Well, I don't know. My thinking, does all of our policies have to go to NACD, or is it just for state?
I mean, it can be just
right
our position within the state. And then if something comes up before NACD, then we as representatives of Colorado would oppose it or support it according to what our state policy is. So
Well, that would be my understanding. I think that was our intent was, for the state of Colorado to be, to oppose or at least monitor and check into it, make sure that we're doing everything right for our landowners.
I think this is a standalone for CACD. This is not an NACD. This is the policy of the state association.
Okay.
I guess having grown up on the Front Range and watched Jefferson County acquire ranches up and down the foothills, I wonder if you'd push it down to the counties that are Boulder County, Jefferson County, Larimer County, that are all acquiring ranches for preservation.
So I'm sorry, was that an answer to what preserving means?
I'm sorry. We
I
had a
was
lot of feedback.
I'm sorry. I was just asking what the word preserving is.
Okay, preserving means in that paragraph. I think she was saying, she was asking, preserving means in that paragraph, is what I believe she said.
Well,
You
to
had a
keep-
lot of feedback. I'm sorry.
My definition of preserving there is to keep the acreage in to go on for future generation.
I'm a little bit confused now. So this is saying that you're opposing objectives written or any future program that requires, and then if you put in your definition of preserving, making the land go on for future generations. So yeah, I think the definition of preserving is definitely getting in the way.
Yeah, if you can think of a different word, that'd be fine.
Cool. I would take how you're saying it is the correct way to say it, is maybe taking out preserving or preserving for future generation. You need to define preserving, I guess.
Correct.
It opposes the objectives that requires preserving any further acreage of the United States of America's lands and water. I think there should be a period after that. Because then it gets confusing because it also sounds like you're opposing and opposing. I think we just want to be clear that okay, sorry. One more question. Could we kind of say that as take the designating more wilderness and say in any future program introduced at federal and state levels that require designating more wilderness areas or restrictive policies on existing federal lands? Could we just, I guess, don't take it out completely yet, but what I'm saying is strike the whole sentence that says requires preserving further acreage and put Right, sorry, it's just the sentences aren't.
Well,
fitting.
it's a run-on sentence.
Yeah,
So you need to break it up.
And we, like Sean said, take out requires and put in to hold onto it for private owner and family for generations to come.
okay, so I would take that whole sentence, or I'm sorry, that part will requires preserving any further acreage of the United States, America, lands and water. Take that, put it at the end of the sentence, and we'll make it as a new sentence that says
Yeah.
our intention of what we want, because it starts out with opposition. So we first
Right.
want to state what we oppose, then make a sentence of what we're trying to promote, right?
Correct.
Right.
Nikki, does that make sense when you're trying to?
You cut out somewhere in there where you wanted to start the moving. At the requires piece?
Yes, all the way to lands and water.
Gotcha.
And then cut that. And we'll put that, if you could put it at the end. And we're gonna reword it a little bit at the end.
Okay.
Okay, so.
You can take out the word and, couldn't you?
Yep, you can take out the word that and opposes. And then you say both at federal and state level twice in that sentence. So do you want to take out the one at the beginning or at the end?
Probably at the end, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because it's just restating it again. So you can, Nikki, you can take out both at federal and state level from the end of that sentence. And then the last sentence we'll want to change to something like, we support preserving. Now I need your help again of what preserving means. Preserving further acreage for
Well,
the use of future generations.
to hold on to private ownership and family for generations to come.
Do you want to take out preserving and put hold on?
Well, that's what would that be
Okay.
better to hold?
Well, I think you could say we could support preserving further. Take out the word further. I think you could say we support preserving acreage of the United States of America's lands and water for private ownership and future generations.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Okay. Let's see how that works.
So this is Casey. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
I'm so sorry that was so garbled before. I guess that designating should probably be designates.
Yes, that's correct.
And then that being, there's calling our attention to that somewhere. I'm not sure. Program that may.
Could we use the
I'm
word
not sure
place?
what happens after that is being designated in its natural state.
Sorry, Tim, go ahead.
I just thought, should we use the word place, but
Where were you thinking?
designate works really good. Yep, you guys were going too fast. Yep.
Oh, like places anymore.
Yeah,
I see.
I was way back. Yeah.
And I'm also thinking a good place for a period might be right after that federal lands, where there's a long, open space there. And maybe that next part needs to be its own sentence in some way, or maybe it doesn't. Something like this includes.
That's what I was wondering, Casey, including, take out along and with, including national heritage areas and conservation easements. Use the word including.
This is hard.
So I think we could complete that sense of including natural heritage areas and conservation easements or any other program that we need to add something there. That blank is being designated in its natural state. Should we say, or any other program where land is being designated in its natural state? Is that what?
Yes.
So after program, change the word that to where land. No, sorry, not that one. Nope. Go down to national heritage area. Yep, and then see where it says easement or any other program.
Before you
That,
get there, go back to the word heritage areas and put heritage areas, comma, delete the word and, conservation easements, or can you continue from there?
and or any other program where land is being designated in its natural state.
Is that where you want the word preserved instead of designated?
Oh.
Because I don't know, I think that's a little problematic. I mean, there's nothing wrong with leaving land.
Right.
Is there? I'm just asking, I'm a newcomer, I'm sorry.
That's a good point. Harold, do you want to speak a little bit more to what that verbiage was when you wrote it?
Well, I'm sitting there reading and I'm thinking about changing that last sentence. But I know you guys up there where land is being designated in its natural state. You know, I like it where we're at in the natural state because that's what a lot of the environmentalists wanting us to do, to keep the land in natural state. But I don't know, as for wording it, I'm terrible about that. But I come up with on maybe changing that last sentence. Instead of we support preserving acreage of United States of American land and water, just have this sentence: preserve family ownership of private lands for current and future generations. For future, current and future generations. What do you think of in striking out that we support?
Yeah.
And I guess, do we need to add water in there too? Private lands and water?
Ooh. So then going back to what Casey was mentioning of where land is being designated in its natural state, I wonder if we can be more intentional of like that word designated, maybe restricted, maybe say, or any program where land is being restricted.
Or preserved. Somebody had suggested preserved.
Or maintained.
Maintain, yeah, maintain.
But
Maintain.
ultimately, I feel like the problem with this America the Beautiful program is that they're not recognizing the benefits that farmers and ranchers are bringing to the land and the opportunity that they are. I feel like it's kind of written in saying that we need to get ranching off the land, which is the exact opposite of what we need to do. So I really like trying to educate these decision makers in understanding the benefits of having agriculture and especially ranching on the land to preserve the natural state of the land. So if we say that we oppose programs that preserve the natural state of the land, then we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot when we go back and try to make the argument that we are here to help preserve the land.
True.
So I don't know the answer to how we're going to fix that, but that's my concern with that part of the sentence. You could just say, or any other program that is restrictive of,
I was going to say restricts management practices.
yes, yeah, that restricts, yeah, management practices and stewardship or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Effective, maybe restricts effective management practices and stewardship.
Then it kind of gives us a little bit of an opportunity to educate our decision makers on why they need us on land.
And what works, right?
Yeah.
I like that.
So then, Nikki, we would go ahead and strike where land is being designated in its natural state.
Should we also put in there restricts effective land management practices?
Yeah, good call.
Why don't you land and water practices?
There we go.
Or even local, to draw attention to the fact that the West is not like other places.
Right.
Oh, so restricts effective local land and water management. Yeah. Practice.
Yeah.
And stewardship. I like having stewardship in there too. So then in the last sentence, do we need to say, like, we support preserving family ownership, or do we just keep it as preserve family ownership of?
I'd keep it the way it is.
Well, you start out by saying that you oppose these things, and then you end with a really positive comment. I just don't want it to get I wouldn't want it to get confused. Yeah.
Could we say we encourage preserving family ownership of private lands?
Sounds good.
You guys want that in there? So you're down at preserve, Nikki? Yeah.
Yeah, we encourage preserving.
Preservation of.
Oh, yeah, preservation of.
Or could we say support?
Sure.
We support preservation.
Instead of encourage, yeah.
Yeah.
We've got to go back to that first paragraph. We got one really, really, really long sentence there. Need to split that up.
So then do we need to put a period after lands? And then
This,
start, yeah,
and then start over, put a period after lands and then say, this includes, this
Yeah.
would include, this would include national heritage areas, et cetera, et cetera.
Can we also take out the, and any future program introduced both at the federal and state levels and just say any future program introduced at the federal and state level?
yeah, good call.
Well, we said that in the first sentence, or the kind of.
Yeah, she was just saying the word both is like repetitive,
Right.
taking that word both out.
Oh, I see. Mhm.
Or you could say at any level.
Yes.
Because that could be local too.
Yeah.
Mhm. Right.
At any level.
Like Gary mentioned, Jefferson County.
Right.
So Nikki, if you want to change at federal and state to just at any.
Yeah. Or you want to add any government level?
Yes.
Yeah, that works too.
Yep.
So I'm just wondering, does this mean that we're putting in the policy book that we oppose conservation easements? Or we just oppose government mandated conservation easement?
Well, you're opposing written in the American the Beautiful
Okay.
program is what you're opposing. That's how I read it.
Right.
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 At any
right.
future program. Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
That was our,
Seacole might-
that was our intent is of the future program to America the Beautiful program. What they was coming out with all of it.
Okay.
I'm not sure that addresses Harold's concerns about the military taking land for a weapons range.
Do you want to say land and water rights?
I just land and water. I don't think we need it. Because the thing is that Colorado, we do have water right, and there are other Western states that do have water rights, but there are other states to the east looking at this at a national, let's go 30,000 level, that they don't, they have too much water.
And I truly think water rights should be another resolution down the road instead of trying to add it into this resolution.
Thank you.
I think you've got a period after the word stewardship, I think, but I'm not seeing it. But third line from the bottom.
Yeah, Word did something funny. It's this little black dot down here, right below it. The line below is a period.
All right.
Nikki will keep it straight.
Trying.
Don't worry, we gotta look at all this again one more time.
Well, I like the way it's been written now. It's getting our point across, plus preserving our private land and water for ourselves and our future generations.
Is that a motion, Harold?
Yes.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, thank you, Tim. All right, any more further discussion on how it is written? And would we like Nikki to read it again one more time before I call for a vote, or are we good to go?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
I'm good.
All right. Been seconded. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Calling for any other motions to be made. Anything on chat? I think we're good. Yep. With that, I will now call for the vote to close. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right, thank you guys. On to support
Generational
transfer of
family farms.
Yep, thank you. And who wrote this one?
San Juan submitted.
San Juan, is just out of curiosity, is there anybody from San Juan here to discuss this?
Gary, you've got some background on this with the NACD level.
He doesn't have to say anything right now, but I just wanted to make sure. Okay, Nikki. Go ahead, Jim. Or George, sorry.
Last I heard, this is kind of stalled. I don't know, maybe Brett has some thoughts on where this sits.
Okay, well, hold on. Let us open it if you guys want. And then we can ask Brett questions from there. So I'll go ahead and have Nikki read it. And if it's seconded, we can go from there. Just keep it in.
Okay. CACD will support a family's ability to pass ownership of family enterprises, farms, and ranches down to the next generation without additional taxation upon death.
I'd make the motion to accept this as written.
Is there a second?
Harold second.
All right, thank you, Harold. It is now open for discussion. George, you said you wanted to hear from Brett?
Well, yeah, and actually, Tim and Harold, I agree with you. I think the language that it says here, it says what we want it to say. But we need to be somewhat proactive in getting this opinion down to the people that are voting on it. But by itself, the resolution, I'm okay with it as well.
As we look to the background, I mean, what they're addressing gets into the changes proposed on capital gains and not
Right.
just estate taxes. So,
Right.
and it is kind of hung up in Congress on that particular topic of reducing that from there's a current, what, 11 million exemption at the federal level.
Right.
That expires in a couple of years, so that's of a concern, but as the resolution's written, I think it's says what we wanted to.
Because if this goes through federal legislation, it'll be a death to the agriculture communities.
And it's being hammered in Congress at it based on that particular issue, so. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if it drops it to 1 million exemption, then farms go out the window.
I think Harold and Tim suggest, I think the resolution gives CACD enough to fight this battle as it comes down the road.
Yes, Carlin?
I think it's me, Callie.
Callie, oh, sorry, Callie, my bad.
It's okay. Is there any reason you don't put this to go on to NACD as well, since this is a national level, put it NACD and CACD, and that means take it on to NACD?
I think Kelly has a good idea there.
I agree with that as well.
I would
So
agree.
Then do you want it to say CACD and NACD or NACD and CACD? I don't know which one comes first.
I don't think it matters.
Okay.
Right. I have no problem with adding that to that. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Neither do I.
I can't imagine that NACD would have any problem with that language. That's
It's
a
pretty clear and concise, that's for sure.
It's a national issue, for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other discussion? So look at the chat, none.
Okay, Brad, is this written correctly to encourage CACD to encourage? Well, we want CACD to encourage NACD is what it wants to say then. If we want to, do we want to carry it up onto the national level, then that needs to direct us. And just saying that we will support that really doesn't put it into any policy, I don't think.
So what happens is that if we pass policy, we want to go to NACD, then we have to write a resolution to NACD for them to consider as a resolution at their level.
Okay, and is that the intent of this resolution?
So as I understand it, this is how policy is written. It says CACD and NACD will support. And it's straightforward and simple. And all CACD needs to do is take it right straight on up to NACD.
Okay.
So I guess I would change that, Nikki, to CACD and NACD. Just reverse that. Okay, thank you.
And just for clarification, when it actually goes into your policy book, it would just be CACD, but this resolution is guiding NACD, I'm sorry, CACD to move it on to the national level.
Does anyone know, I'm just sitting here thinking, is this in President Biden Build Back Better agenda? This proposed death tax, death tax?
I don't think so. But I'm not 100% sure.
It was my understanding that it's a separate thing, not part of the Build Back Better, but I'm not totally sure either.
Yeah, well, I've just wondered.
Just doesn't seem like we have the young. It's part of his tax proposal is what I'm seeing here.
It doesn't come out of the House. It doesn't matter. Let's go ahead and,
Yeah,
this is our resolution.
yeah.
We're
We
still
like
talking about
to debate
taxes right now.
Yeah.
Well, I still say we need to support the family to ability to pass it on. So,
Absolutely.
Agree.
I think, are you ready for a vote?
Yep.
We are.
All right. Let's see, any other further discussion? I'll give a second. Hearing none. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. On to the next one. I believe that's highway signals,
Signage.
signage. Who wrote this one?
Mankus.
Makis. Is anybody from Makis?
That's in the San Juan
Okay,
watershed. But no,
Daniel's
nobody from that district. Yeah.
okay. Nikki, go ahead and read it whenever you'd like.
Oh, okay, that's a lot. All right. Just making sure I was in the right place. Whereas 43-1-108 or 106 8A CRS 2011 gives authority to the Transportation Commission of Colorado, further known as the Commission, to formulate the general policy with respect to the management, construction, and maintenance of public highways and other transportation systems in the state. And whereas current policy directive 1500 was adopted by the Transportation Commission on April 19th, 2018, and whereas pursuant to 42-4-108 CRS, CDOT is charged with adopting a manual and specifications for a uniform system of traffic control devices for use upon highways within Colorado. And whereas pursuant to 42-4-104 CRS, CDOT's guide signing manual must conform to the system set forth in the most recent edition of the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices for Streets and Highways and other related standards issued or endorsed by the Federal Highway Administrator. And whereas the Traffic and Safety Engineering branch of the department has completed a revision of the guide, signing policies and procedures manual, and ensure that it conforms to the MUTCD, which contains the standards and guidelines for the design and installation of highway signing. And whereas the commission supports CDOT's goal of guide signing by striking the appropriate balance between the needs of local governments, individual businesses, motorists, and passengers, minimizing sign pollution and complying with federal and state law governing outdoor advertising and the design and application of highway guide signing. Whereas pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 3570-106, conservation districts were created and certified as local governments, and declaring the area within the boundaries of such district to be lawful conservation district under its name as shown in the records. And thereafter such district shall be a public body corporate and a political subdivision of the state of Colorado, and shall have all the powers and duties imposed upon such districts under the provisions of this article. Now therefore it be resolved that the CACD membership at its annual meeting held in Colorado Springs, Colorado on November 16th, 2021, recommends that the CACD take action with the Colorado Department of Transportation, CDOT, and Colorado Department of Agriculture, CDA, to work with Colorado conservation districts to determine cost, locations, design, and placement of conservation district signs with a letter from the conservation district stating so. CDOT ensuring the engineering of the sign and its support along with the safe zone requirements to CDOT standards for each particular location. Now therefore be resolved that the CACD membership at its annual meeting held in Colorado Springs, Colorado, November 16, 2021, recommends that CACD take action with the Colorado Department of Transportation, CDOT, and Colorado Department of Agriculture, CDA, to work with Colorado conservation districts to fully cover the cost determined by the locations, design, and placement of conservation district signs. That's it.
Good job, Nikki.
I'm getting some water.
Nikki, I lost you after that first sentence. Could you go back and reread that?
Watch out, she has a gun. She might come after you.
I'm sorry, I just couldn't resist.
Okay, so it has been read. Therefore, is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay. Give it to Sean, second read. Okay. All right. I guess I'd like to hear a little clarification of, is there somebody in this area, like what happened, or is there a story or something?
I think that what was explained at the watershed meeting is that their concern is that there's not a consistency among conservation districts on signage when you're entering, leaving conservation districts. Used to be you'd have the soil conservation district signs, as you went in one and out the other were noticeable, and they want that consistency to meet current highway department standards and to have that funded by somebody other than the individual conservation district.
There's further clarification in the chat.
I did, yeah, I saw that.
Can someone please read the chat so that those on the phone can know what's being discussed?
I can read it for everyone. This is from Debbie Mitchell, Fremont. On Fremont, El Paso County line, CDOT removed our signage because it was within their easement. We are having to get new signs and found a private landowner willing to put them on their property instead of along the highway right away. Is that the chat?
Yep.
So I'll start by making a recommendation to take all the whereas statements and put them in the background instead of the in the resolution.
I agree.
Okay.
I think it's important information, but Scott explained at the beginning that to be mindful of the resolutions, to be really direct. So then the resolution, then I think we could just simplify and combine it into one statement. So deleting the now therefore be it written. I mean, this is great. It's written well for if you actually were, like putting it into policy, but I would recommend taking the now therefore be it resolved it out and then start with the CACD membership and remove at its annual meeting held in Colorado Springs.
Yeah, we missed that.
Yeah, and we don't need that, right, Scott? We don't need that in there to.
No, you should just be, we need to attend or they would like to have CACD representation at the whatever it is. What's the meeting called? What is the meeting called? Colorado Department of Transportation, CDA. I don't even know what the meeting's called. I guess it was just CDOT.
Yeah.
And And do we need to add associations instead of just Colorado conservation districts?
Oh, like say the whole word.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
or with CACD.
No, yeah, it would,
Yeah,
it would be wise for it to say Colorado Association of Conservation Districts. Take actions and Colorado Department of.
because the next line down after Colorado Department of Ag, it says to work with Colorado conservation districts again. So,
I think that's working with in each individual conservation district on.
Maybe we
that
could
they're involved
clarify
in
that by
designing.
saying to work with individual conservation districts, add the word individual.
Does this have any, like, no, never mind. I was just gonna ask, this doesn't have anything to do with should our partners in the NRCS be included in this as well? Or not really?
No,
Okay,
this is to establish the boundaries of the conservation districts.
okay. I just didn't know if there was a partnership program there or not on that. So that's the only reason.
Oh, I have a question. So you see the signs all over the state as you enter and leave conservation districts. Some of them are really crisp and sharp looking. Some of them are in terrible states of disrepair. Like, who's currently paying for the signs? Who has traditionally been responsible for that? Have the individual districts put their own signs up?
Yes.
Yes,
I think
yes.
would be the
Yeah.
question.
Individual districts.
And then is this asking for the state to start paying for those?
Possibly.
In our instance, we had our local FFA chapter make the signs and they helped us put them in. So that's one of our community efforts with the local 4-H and FFA chapters. And
Yeah, but I get the point that Brett's saying is that if we're gonna try to put these signs on the interstate on federal lands, there could
understand
be
that.
requirements, just like dealing with the railroad. Like, it has to be made out of 6x6 metal, or 6-inch metal. I don't know. I'm sure there's some kind of requirements there that could be expensive.
There is.
It seems like they have a color standards, and they, like, driving down the road, if you see a US Forest Service office, it's a brown sign with white lettering, and the blue and white signs for individuals, organizations and stuff. Those are the kind of design standards that CDOT has that we currently don't abide by. And that's part of probably the issue of them taking down signs in the right of way of the highways, is that they don't meet that federal sign standard. So you have to put it on private land outside the right of way.
So
that's what, go ahead,
why
George.
not? Why not put it on private lands outside of the right of way and keep CDOT and CD and everybody out of it completely? I understand the intent here, but I think it's overkill.
Yeah, which is the current condition. I mean, that's currently how we exist.
Well, I know that's what we had to do on ours down here, to put it on private land. And Scott, we cannot put it on, like, we have a lot of Comanche national grassland. We cannot put a sign on there. So we have to go to a private land.
Yeah. Reservation or whatever.
So
What are you thinking, Jim?
well, is this they want us to talk to the Department of the CDOT and CDA to work with the districts to cover the cost, determine the location, design, and placement. And again, in all our area, they're all on private land. They always have been. And so I don't know who's are in the highway right of way. What percentage do you suppose are in reality? No one probably knows that answer, do we?
I bet not. I bet in this day and age, Jim, to be completely honest with you, I bet not much.
Well, I
Just
just,
because just the way that the state is over that stuff, so.
Well, it's like, it's, our local highway maintenance guy in front of us, they won't let us put reflectors on our mailbox, so.
Yeah. But it's getting to be more political, like, you know, on that stuff, so.
Nick has his hand raised.
Yep.
Yeah, and a non-voting member, guys, but yeah, I see this to be a really difficult task for CACD. Highway signs have become such a specific, and there are safety issues. They got to be breakaways probably if they're in there right away. And if they're in there right away, we're going to have to follow those rules. I see that being very expensive and cumbersome, and a lot of permitting and a lot of meetings. And most conservation districts are going to say, guys, let's bag this idea. And I believe in the signs. I mean, it used to be a little easier world out there with CDOT, with everything, and we didn't have to follow so many guidelines. But today, I really think there are too many guidelines to follow to make this happen. And in rare instances, if somebody wants to spend a lot of money, then I think maybe it'll work. But right now, I'm thinking we really encourage conservation districts to put them on private land, and and then give an award to the private landowner being the best farmer in the whole county. I mean, just kidding about that one, but anyway.
You must live on the county line, huh, Nick?
Well, yeah, it'd be great. I can do it on my place. No, it would be. I think that's just my take on it. And boy, I'd love to talk to CDOT, because we could bring up a lot of things like, hey, this bridge down here, these grain trucks are going to fall through, and so on. But that's my 4 cents worth. Thanks.
I don't think CDOT is ever going to pay for these signs.
No, they're
They'll
not.
never pay for them.
That's not what it says.
No, they
Brett.
won't.
Brett's got his hand raised.
Work with the conservation.
Yeah, I can tell you from working with another client that CDOT is making cuts in a lot of different places. There's hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars behind on infrastructure projects. I mean, they're going to laugh right in our face if we talk to them about paying for their signs. Now, I can see maybe some guidance here where Colorado Association Conservation Districts will communicate with Colorado Department of Transportation. I'm not sure what CDA has to do with it.
Right.
Maybe to provide guidance to the Colorado Conservation Districts regarding design and placement of conservation district signs or something along those lines. CDOT ensuring the engineering of the sign and its supports of the safety. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, so that would be the only thing that, well, I don't have an opinion. Sorry, I'll stop there.
Charlie, this is Harold.
Yeah.
Since we don't have a representative from Mancus, can we have them take this here back to their district and work on it for next year? Because I can't see it passing right now.
No, I don't think so either. I think that's a good idea. Send it back.
But we still, just to let you guys know, we still have a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. So on how to vote, so or decide how you guys want to vote on this. We're not saying it's a bad resolution, but we're saying that needs a lot of clarification on it, I guess.
So Scott, are you saying if we clean it up a little bit and kind of put different language of what we'd like to see and then still vote it down, at least that gives this district?
I don't know if I would even go that far if you guys know in your heart you're going to vote it down.
No, I don't think we need to.
No, I'd call for a vote.
Okay, called. Let's see. Calling for a vote to close on the floor. Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Hey,
Nay.
Hey,
Aye.
Uh, Anybody support, say yay. All right, motion failed.
with the caveat to tell him to try to, well, no.
Well, Bob, I'll write a letter. We'll reach
persistent
out.
avenues.
Yeah, we'll take care of it.
Yeah, and I think
I'll put them in the
we can
center.
go back, go back and get guidance, you know.
Yeah.
if We can get a letter from CDOT says you need, signs need to be in following all these different parameters, but
Aw.
Well, no, there, whereas statements they already recognized what the, steps. Part of it is that CDOT has an unfunded mandates kind of, to try to accommodate local governments. So
You're just opening up a hornet's nest here. I think we did the right thing there with that vote.
Okay, next one is Wolf. Okay, Nikki's got it up. Okay, Nikki, go ahead and read it whenever.
Nick or Callie?
Okay, sorry.
Nikki can read it.
Make sure I got to the right spot here. CACD opposes the introduction/reintroduction of wolves into Colorado. However, Colorado Proposition 114, Gray Wolf Reintroduction Initiative, passed at the ballot box by less than 1% in 2020. Therefore, Colorado will have wolves introduced, and CACD will actively engage in the planning process with the following policies. CACD supports, number 1, a wolf restoration and management plan based on peer-reviewed science and on-the-ground experience of other states. Number 2, taking into consideration Colorado's population/land mass ratio compared to the other states where wolves have been introduced. Number 3, removal of wolves from CPW's threatened and endangered list upon release of wolves in Colorado. Number 4, the release and manage wolves only in Western Slope counties where the majority of citizens voted to introduce wolves. Number 5, managing wolves in specified game management units, GMU, or groups of GMUs, depending on the size, to ensure a pack of wolves would have ample area considering what it takes for a healthy wolf population, but also considers the impacts to all other multiple uses of the land. Number 6, a hard maximum number of wolves for the state, but also a hard maximum number by identified GMU so that a heavy population in one area does not decimate the wildlife, livestock, recreation, etc. within a given area. Example, state maximum population of 100 wolves with 3 GMUs, each with a maximum of 35 wolves. Once a maximum number is reached, wolf numbers would be managed through hunting licenses. Number 7, a plan that minimizes the impacts to outfitters, sportsmen, agriculture producers, and rural communities. Number 8, a robust monitoring program that includes collaring wolves. Number 9, a fair and rapid predation verification process, including the use of photos and location as proof of probable and confirmed loss. Number 10, lethal take of wolves to protect people, pets, and livestock. Number 11, wolves being proactively and continuously managed to limit the impacts on livestock, big game, and other wildlife. Number 12, CPW work closely with livestock producer to determine fair compensation for predation and collateral damages. CACD opposes, number 1, the release of wolves in counties where the majority of citizens voted to oppose introducing wolves. Oh, I thought there was more.
Is that a typo?
Callie, is that, are we missing part of it?
No. That's why I have it.
I'm trying to get to it because yeah, there's some things I'm thinking are not quite tracking. So I was trying to get to our original one.
Okay.
So because Nikki, what you've got shows 12 different ones, right?
Correct.
On the positive supports. And the one that was sent out from CACD is what I was just looking at, is got 10. And the first thing that caught my eye is 1 and 2, I think, is
They're
one
separated.
sentence. But I'm trying to look at that, because I think a wolf restoration and management plan based on peer-reviewed science and on-the-ground experience of other states, taking into consideration Colorado's population land mass ratio compared to other states where wolves have been introduced. I think that's all one. Does that compute for everybody else?
No, because we tried to separate them because it was important with the different states with the population, people population and land mass versus wolves was important enough to separate.
Okay, maybe that's what it was, Rosalie. Thanks. So where was the other typo you guys were thinking? It was
At the bottom,
Mhm.
it just says CACD opposes one,
The release of
the
wolves.
release of wolves.
okay. So what I'm seeing on your screen says the release of wolves in counties where the majority of citizens voted to
No,
oppose
at the
introducing
very
wolves.
bottom of the screen.
Yep,
That's
that's
what,
what,
that's
Yeah,
what
that-
she was reading.
I
Mhm.
Okay.
actually think that's correct. Isn't that
Yeah.
right, Kelly? That is just one
Yep.
opposition listed there. I
Right.
went back and found the one we
Okay.
were working on. Sorry,
correct.
All right.
when I was reading it, it just threw me off. I was
Yeah.
on a roll with
It-
a list and it stopped at one.
Yeah, it threw me
Sorry, I
off
can
too.
give you more if you want.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
It's only 9 o'clock. We're good. We can do some more.
Yeah. So I think I'm looking at the edits. Everything else looked like it went over okay. Is that
Okay.
right from
Okay.
your perspective, Callie?
I think so. And Rosalie,
Okay.
you may remember, we did break that out. If they read clear, I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal.
Okay.
I
So-
actually have the redlined version from the original and what's shown and that tracked exactly with what Nikki read.
Okay.
Okay, it's been read. Is there a second?
Jim, I'll second.
All right, thank you, Jim. Now open for discussion. Who would like to start?
This is Harold.
Are you Harold?
On number 4, the release and manage wolves only in the western slope counties. What about the eastern slope? We've got the Mexican wolf already down here in southern Colorado.
Isn't it according to the legislature that it has to be here on the western slope?
So you both are correct. The ballot initiative, how it was read was, yes, wolves released, 30 wolves released west of the Continental Divide. But Harold is correct that we do have the New Mexican gray wolf, which is in southern Colorado, east and west.
So I think this resolution is speaking specifically to the introduction.
Of the gray wolf.
If you want to call it the forced introduction through Proposition 114 in particular. We'd need to reword it quite a bit if you go broader, I think.
I agree with that, Callie. This is
Yeah, you're
very
right. It does
specific.
say that.
This is very specific to
Mhm.
the proposition was approved by the ballot. I think it needs to stay that way.
And so Colorado Parks and Wildlife, I think they're putting together a wolf management plan, not just a wolf reintroduction plan. So
Well, we hope.
Yeah.
that's a lot of what the discussion, the meetings they've been having going around the state is that they're talking about, landowner compensation and how do you do that? And so.
Correct, but I think it's important for our conservation districts and for CACD to be able to manage and support these issues and not just leave it to the Parks and Wildlife.
Yeah, I'm not saying we don't engage. I'm just saying that it's a wolf management plan. It includes the Mexican gray wolf as well. So
I like the way you wrote it up. I just wanted to clarify, you know, we need to do something to stay on top of Parks and Wildlife, CPW, and make sure that they are counting them right and everything, because we already know we have the gray wolf in Colorado anyway.
Mhm. Does anybody have other questions?
I do. Where, because I brought this up at one of these meetings. Where did did they state that it would be number 6 regarding how many wolves there would be, what the wolf population would be before they would release hunting license? Because I brought that up. I said, well, because they were saying how they stated is, well, point being, I asked, I said, when would we be able to hunt them? And they said they did not know what how many wolves that would be in the state before they would issue hunting licenses, is what they said at the meeting I was at. I was just curious if they told you 100.
No, as we wrote that, I was just using that as an example, because no, that is a part of the conversation that's being developed. I mean, that is the conversation or part of it that's being developed right now. So no, that's why I say it's just an example.
And we'd like it to be exact and not just a moving target.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I put my hand up, but I guess can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, go ahead, Nick. Sorry. I was reading.
You didn't call on me, Scott. Shoot. I feel like
I never stopped you
remind
before,
Johnny if they're holding my hand way up high. I want to hear what he has to say. No, I went to the one here in Craig and on this management planning deal. We sat through 6 hours of the board talking to one another. And they have some good ideas. There's some people, it's a good representation, I think, of all the different proponents and those against wolves. But at the end of it, we all got 2 minutes to speak, and there were like 6 people or some 8 people that wanted to speak and got 2 minutes. So they're really, we got to listen a lot, but we didn't really get to state a lot of our concerns. And so, but that question came up of a viable population, and they said 5 breeding pairs, which would turn into about 100 within a couple of years, and that would be considered a possible viable population. So 100 wolves, but I don't know, we have a dog and it's a golden retriever, and she had 9 pups here this last spring. So I think things can get pretty out of hand pretty quick. They talked about all kinds of compensation for loss to livestock, but they tried to use all the different examples of other states, which won't work in Colorado because all the other states that these wolves were introduced in are far less population and far less populated, even on the western slope. I think the law that got passed, the proposition that got passed, said something about west of the Continental Divide is where they'd be introduced, and hence probably managed. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of explanation to do there, from them. I don't think they really know. Somebody's going to interpret that down the road. And the only way that you can hunt them is if they've taken off the endangered species list, because otherwise you're breaking federal law. And the state of Colorado doesn't have a heck of a lot to do with that. So it's a matter of population and what's considered a viable population, and to control that viable population, then hunting would be allowed when they're delisted. So there's a lot of this that intertwines with one another. I like some of this really good. I like the GMU size and limiting the size or the number of wolves in a GMU. That's a great thing because some GMUs have a lot more elk than others and deer. And so, and the deer population is on decline anyway. I don't know about anybody else's area, but we have a really bad thing going on with our deer. We just don't have a lot of deer and we don't see them anymore in the last few years, and added drought has been a problem. So we can only see that being a bigger problem. The management of it and the compensation of it is I think we can, I want to do all of these things, but I want to on the CACD board, but I want to try to do things that we can do right now, low hanging fruit. So if we can do that, if you guys can figure that out and give us a little more, and I know Callie's going to hate me for saying this, but because she wants it all in there, and I don't blame you, Callie, because it's important to have it there to refer to and say, hey, this is part of our policy. And so I don't want to decimate these words, but just get something that we can actually work on and represent, because I'll drive to wherever and represent CACD, maybe along with some couple other members, and we'll go over there and by golly, we'll take, if there's 3 of us, we can take 6 minutes. So geez, that's going to be better than 2. Anyway, so that's just my thoughts, because I did go to that deal, and a couple of us actually from our conservation district went, and we kind of feel also up here in the northwest corner that we're ground zero and that we would probably get them first, although I hear that that's not the case. But that was kind of what the governor mentioned early on in this deal once it got passed. So anyway, I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you, Nick. I have something I'd like to add on 9 at the end of the sentence, and compensate livestock producer. I don't somehow, along with confirming the loss, and it would be to compensate for loss. Basically getting paid.
That's already addressed in number 12, Scott.
Oh, that's 12. Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Get hung up in the wrong areas. Okay. My bad. Retract.
I'm just curious if anybody got a survey. I got a survey about this wolf reintroduction here. I think it was last week. It was fairly lengthy, and it actually came out of CSU. Did anybody else get that?
I did not.
Mm-mm.
Huh.
You're special, Tim.
Yeah. Yeah, pick on me every time, I swear. Of course, I'm sure didn't get the answers that they wanted, but it was a very interesting survey.
They could have been doing your select area too.
Well, I know I live in eastern Colorado. I don't really see them introducing them out here and it working well, but I don't know.
Well,
We can't have our-
but that's what I'm saying is that the survey, I didn't see the survey, but the survey could have been, they release, sometimes they do that in areas where they're maybe trying to find out how people on the eastern slope are feeling. I have no idea. That's a completely assumption.
I just thought it was so odd that I got that, and because I figured, it was more of a western slope or a mountain thing. Of course, you live on the plains, but anyhow, just curious.
It's going to be everywhere when they get here. So
I know.
all right. Well, any other discussion, or does anybody want to
I would
make anything?
Just add that I think it's written really well. I see the point of going for the low hanging fruit, like Nick mentioned, but I did notice it's a policy, not an action. So I don't see any harm in having all of the components in here, because it's really going into the policy statement, right? Is that right? So it's really just going into our policy book to say where we stand. So I don't see any harm in
Well, and it's giving us a broad brush because basically our old policy in the CACD policy book on wolves was we oppose. Period. There was
It's a
no,
lot more complete.
now, yeah, and now they're coming. We can't, there's nothing we can do. It is, now we have to fight tooth and nail to get it. And I mean, Nick and I both have been, and I'm sure there's other board members that have been really on top of this and are trying to be at many meetings as we can. So
In the case of taking, this is Nick again, in the case of taking all of these on, we need to define and expand some of these deals so that we can have more, if they're going to have some weight, then let's do it. So the consideration of population, the mass, and compared to other states, we cannot compare it to other states because we don't compare to other states. So we need to have a big fund that actually was mentioned at our meeting here. The guy from the Colorado Springs Zoo said, I think we could get 30 million together to kind of fund this deal and to keep it an annuity so we could cover the cost of the predation of these wolves. So, well, I think that's a good idea. I think we should follow that lead. So we need to just be paid on several things. Just the wolves, we need to be paid on loss of breeding percentage. And we all know what our breeding percentages are. Heck, our vets know. We can record that. We can present that as solid information. We need to, that needs to be in here. We need to lose. It's not just wolves killing a calf or a cow. What about the cow? If she's injured, I have a cow right now in the corral. It's got a broken shoulder that was chased by a bear this summer. She had raised her calf and now I don't have the heart to shoot her. So, there's more than just what's here. So if we're going to make it, let's go ahead and do it tonight and get this thing done so that it's right. And that it includes some ammunition that we can say, hey, here it is, CACD, we'll send it. Because I'd like to send this policy, if it gets passed by the general membership, to the post it on their website and add our own comments as a board. So I think that's one thing that we need to have a fund established that pays automatically and that are proving the loss doesn't have to be according to other states, because as I understand it, only about 40% of the kills in other states get paid for. So that's a little something we don't want. We need somebody to be working on removing them from the threatened endangered list upon a certain number of breeding pairs that exist or a total number that exist, a population number, period, a number. We need to manage wolves all over the state of Colorado, because if I can trap one, I'm going to bring one over to Tim's house up there. And we're going to send. No, just kidding. We're not going to do that.
Don't get that personal. Jeez.
Well, he says they don't have them over there. He's like, so we'll want to share all the stuff we have here, the wildlife. We want the GMU. We want to be able to tell them which GMUs, because we have them right here in our part of the state and all the way down to Gary. So, they're going to only issue hunting licenses when a maximum is reached. So we need to define that maximum.
Well, yeah, but CPW is going to define that maximum.
Well, but our ask is going to be what our constituents want.
Right.
And as a constituent, this is what I would like to see, just knowing what I know of it. And it sounds I'm a little bit militant about it. Yes. But you know what? We're the ones that stand to lose. We're going to lose cattle. We're going to lose breeding. We're going to numbers. We're going to be, our conception rate could be 60% if they're harassed by wolves. I mean, this is some serious stuff. And so I think we need to throw everything at them. I don't know, I had a couple more here that work closely with livestock producers with fair compensation. Here's another place where you can, in the collateral damage, we could define, instead of just collateral damage, we could define lower conception rates. We could define injuries to cattle to make them where they're not viable for breeding.
I'll talk to your grandpa tomorrow.
So anyway,
Yes.
And see if we can get it.
Okay.
Nick,
sorry.
All right, go ahead, Callie.
and I guess I'm really trying to understand, Nick, where we see this so differently. This is general policy. It gives CACD the baseline. When you go to a CPW meeting that they're having the conversation about compensation, all you have to do is, because you have this in policy and it says work with livestock producers, you as the board and livestock producers can expand upon that. You don't have, if you put that kind of definition in a policy, you're locking yourself in to not be able to work with and negotiate. And you're going to have to do a lot of negotiating in this effort. So I don't think we're preventing you from doing anything you want to do. This is just giving you the baseline and the topics that gives you the backing to elaborate on it a little bit more.
I agree with you, Callie. I think this is policy, and it's very well written to cover anything that might come up. We can easily point at this policy and address the specific issues that Nick's raising on the with the cattle and stuff. There may be action items that come out after this, but from a policy standpoint, this is pretty well written, my opinion.
And I'm thinking that gives, I mean, whatever comes up, and I'm sure we don't have it all covered. Don't get me wrong. That isn't going to happen. But it gives you a really good starting point, I think, that says this is where conservation districts stand, if in fact everybody agrees. But trust me, I could write on it for hours and hours if you want me to, but I don't think you want me to.
Yeah.
Well, I do. No, I want you to write, keep writing, Callie.
Well, I'll
think we
send
need
you
to
a
write-
copy.
I think we need to write
I'll send you a copy of what I
entire
submitted to the
term.
group today.
I
So
think we
I'll
need
send you
to
that.
write an entire term paper on this one. Like we're getting an A in composition at a 400 level course.
Right, but this is giving us something, it's giving us policy, and that's what we need right now. And I understand I understand 110% where you come from, Nick. And I stand 110% where Callie come from, and George and everybody out there is coming from on this deal. But right now, this is what we need, so we can work as an organization on moving this forward. So
Scott,
yes, Bobby.
I don't mean to interrupt, but can I remind everybody, when they're making the motions to say their name? We're trying to take minutes. And
Okay.
We're missing
Not a
some
problem.
people. Thank you.
I got them written down so I can circle back around on the motions.
This is Tim Brown. I call for question on this. I think we've discussed it quite a bit.
All right, sounds good. All right, closing on the floor. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. On the consent calendar, please. Well done, guys. All right. Need to take up a little housekeeping. So Charlie, are you still happy being chair?
Yes, that's all right.
And Harold, I believe you're vice chair?
No, I'm
No.
just taking the place of JD.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. Who is the vice chair? I don't know if we have that or not.
It was written
Okay.
down somewhere, but I don't.
It's in the old minutes. So no big deal. But you're happy staying in that position, so we don't need to vote in any new officers. All right, With that, I will go ahead and adjourn the soil and land. I would like to thank everybody tonight. That was great discussions. Tomorrow night, we will be doing, what are we doing tomorrow night? Energy or no?
District outlook.
District outlook. Thank you. I have so many papers scattered everywhere right now. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. I know it was a long one tonight. I sure do appreciate it. We'll see you guys back again tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. Bobby, is there anything else you would like to add?
No, just thank you to everybody for all your hard work. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Scott,
Yes, Harold.
I won't be on tomorrow night.
Okay.
So, but I'll be back on Thursday.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah. I'll need your help on the big one.
Good night, everybody.
Nice.
night.
Thank you.
Night.